Hi, welcome to another Smeester's Corner. I'm Adam Smeester. Today's topic, we are going to be discussing the differences between guilt and shame. One is good, one is not so healthy. So let's get into it. So what is guilt? Guilt is your conscience. It's that little voice inside you that when you do something wrong, it makes you want to correct it. It makes you want to make things right. It's that little voice that tells you you were wrong. That's a good thing. Okay, you need some accountability, and we have accountability kind of built into us that way. So we have a conscience. That's guilt. Shame is different than guilt. It's darker. So what shame does is it takes the feelings of guilt and then turns those into an identity. It's really hard to get rid of sometimes. A lot of times the messaging from shame that you tell yourself about yourself become lies that you believe about yourself. That's when it becomes really harmful. There's lots of things that people have shame over. Some of them are small and some are not so small. So, for example, maybe you failed a test. So the shame says, oh, I'm dumb, and that becomes an identity for you. Maybe someone that you loved cheated on you or broke up with you and you didn't see it coming. That can inspire a lot of shame, and that gives you the identity of, oh, I'm dumb, I didn't see this coming, what else am I this dumb about? And maybe even you accept the message that I'm not worth loving. Maybe you were the one who stupidly broke up with someone or cheated on someone, and that brings shame. And then you think, oh, I'm just a bad person. Maybe you failed a class or got suspended, which brings a little bit of shame. So you think to yourself, oh, I'll never be anything. Maybe you've had a really hard life, and maybe your parents weren't so good to you growing up, and that brings a lot of shame. And so the messaging that you tell yourself is, I'm unlovable, I'm worthless, I'm not worth loving. Maybe your siblings get or got more praise than you, so you think to yourself, they're better than me. Maybe you didn't get the job. Maybe you didn't get a lot of jobs. Maybe you got fired for doing something stupid. So now you tell yourself, well, I'll just never make it. There's no use in trying anymore. Maybe something's happened to you along the course of life that you have a lot of shame over, and it was completely out of your control. And you think to yourself, if people knew this about me, if people knew what I've been through, if people knew that this happened to me, they wouldn't love me or they wouldn't like me. All these examples show that shame lives in the dark. And when you have a lot of shame, you tend to want to live in the dark because you live in the shame. And shame can become a circular spiral downward. So what happens is maybe you have a lot of shame, so you hold people at arm's length. And because you hold people at arm's length, you don't let anybody in. Because you don't let anybody in, no one knows you. Because no one knows you, you feel like you're wearing a mask or you feel like you're being inauthentic, which causes more shame because you feel like you're being fake. So you hold people more at a distance and you don't let anybody know you. And then you start to feel alone. And because you feel alone, you start to feel depressed. And because you start feeling depressed, you start feeling other things. You start feeling isolated. And then the spiral just continues downward. So, what do you do about shame? That's the big question. What are you supposed to do? First of all, you have to recognize what you feel shame over. So, do you feel shame over anything? Are there lies that you believe about yourself? Have you cast yourself in a negative identity? What are those things? You have to identify them first. Then, shame lives in the dark. So what do? You bring what's hiding to the light, which means you find somebody that you trust that will listen. And you probably have those people, you just maybe do not have a lot of trust. So maybe this is going to be a big stretch. So you find somebody that you know will listen, that cares about you. And as tough as this is to do, maybe you say to them sometimes, hey, there's this thing that I need to tell you. I need to really get it off my chest. I need to tell somebody. And then you tell them. And then what happens is they don't judge you. They just say something like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that you were dealing with that. Is there anything I can do? And automatically you realize that the shame that you felt, that can be exposed and people don't judge you and people still love you and people will still respect you. Then you realize that the identity that you've put on yourself isn't real, and that breaks the power of shame. Obviously, you don't want to start telling everybody this. That's not very wise, but you need to bring it to the light. And when you do that, you will start to feel better because now that you've shed those negative messages, you can start to realize who you really are. underneath all of the lies and the negative messages that you've told yourself about yourself. And then you can start to live a happier, more productive life, meaningful life. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.